I know that our police department has puts a lot of emphasis on that and trains on that and makes sure that we can do everything that we can to prevent those types of illicit operations and taking abuse of individuals like that. So thank y'all for bringing awareness to it as well. We would also tonight, one of the great things we get to do is to recognize the outstanding folks that we have working in our city when they have reached a plateau or a 25-year in our organization. And tonight we want to recognize Kelsey Walters. Kelsey, come up if you would. Kelsey is a graduate of the University of Alabama. She got her master's degree from there in library science and started here in 1998 as a library page a few years ago, wasn't it, Kelsey? She is the assistant to Amanda Borden, our library director. She's just an incredibly creative individual and very organized. And we are known in Hoover for our Veterans Day, our Veterans Week program, and that is something that she heads up and just does a really remarkable job, not only recognizing veterans in general, but bringing a particular veteran to our city that lives in our city and recognizing him or her for their service, and just does a great job there. She also puts a lot of effort into our Food for Fines program, and she collects, and through that program, thousands of cans of food are collected rather than the fines that are typically handed out for late books. She's just a really, I think, when we talk about Kelsey and you know that she, number one, she's an incredibly pleasant person to be around. You can tell that just from looking at her today. She's just a sweet lady. She goes out of her way to promote customer service in our city. And, you know, our library gets a lot of accolades for that, and it's because of leadership like individuals like Kelsey. So thank you so much. 25 years, 25 more is easy to make, so just keep going.
Thank you, Mayor. We have one handheld mic, so we will pass it down the line as members tonight would like to comment or question certain items as we work our way through the agenda. That brings us to our announcements and guest recognition. I would like to begin by recognizing newly sworn in for another term, Sheriff John Semiego from Shelby County. Sheriff, welcome to the Hoover City Council. I know I speak for Chief Durzis and his team and telling the sheriff how much we appreciate his partnership. You are a great sheriff, and we're glad you're serving another term, and we just look forward to working alongside you for the benefit of the citizens of Hoover and Shelby County over the next 4 years. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you. I'd also like to recognize a special guest in the chamber tonight, my good friend Jacoby Bradford. Mr. Bradford is a resident of the city of Hoover. He is a member of the United Ability Team located on Lakeshore Drive in Homewood. Jacoby and I had the opportunity to meet last week, and he has a goal of meeting as many mayors in Metro Birmingham as he can. And for some reason, his own mayor, Mayor Bricado, he had not met yet. So we had the pleasure of welcoming Jacoby to Hoover City Hall tonight, and we had the opportunity to meet with the mayor back in his office prior to this meeting. So if I could, I want to recognize Jacoby and have him come up and get a picture with the council and the mayor. Would you guys please welcome to the Hoover City Council, Jacoby Bradford. Yeah, Jacoby, just to tell you a little bit about him, he is a native of Birmingham. He is a son of a pastor who pastored a church in Birmingham. So Jacoby, from a very young age, grew up singing and loves to sing. So in the mayor's office, just before the meeting, we sang what I would think, the three of us sang a great rendition of My Girl. We're not going to repeat it for y'all, but did we not, Jacoby? We had a great rendition of My Girl. Jacoby has been associated with United Ability, previously known as United Cerebral Palsy, for 31 years. He started there when he was 3 years old. Of course, he then went to public schools when he graduated, and now he's back, and he participates there 2 or 3 days a week, but he now makes his home in Hoover. And Jacoby, we want you to know how thankful we are that you've chosen Hoover to make your home, and if there's anything we can ever do to help you, we hope you'll call on us, okay?
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. It's great to have you here. We will now have a presentation by the Hoover Police Department. Chief, if you'd like to come forward with the sheriff.
Mayor, Council, distinguished guests, as you are aware, in November, we finally became accredited by CALEA, something that we had been working on for several years. Went to St. Louis for the announcement, and Sheriff Samaniego is on the board of CALEA. So he is here tonight to present us our award. So I'll leave it up to Sheriff Samaniego.
Thanks, Nick, Mayor, Council. I just wanted to give you just a few words about CALEA because, you know, whenever you're talking idioms, it really doesn't mean much, but it's the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies is what it stands for, and it's really difficult. This is quite an accomplishment because it's not just talented people like Katie and Nick. It takes the buy-in from your entire police department to make it successful. The sheriff's office, we got accredited right when I came into office in 2014, and we have been continuing. And when Hoover came to us and said we have a great partnership, as John said. We consider Hoover a Shelby County city. A lot of it's in Shelby County, but we're going to be your support anytime Nick needs anything. But and has this reciprocates just as well. But we heard about them, so I sent Captain Mark Bishop, who's our accreditation manager, to meet with them, and we got them on the right track. But it was all their work. They did really good, and it culminated in getting that award in November. So without further ado, we'd like to go ahead and present that award to the city of Hoover as well as the police department.
Mayor, Mr. Rice, come on. Yeah, thank you. This is the big one. That's the big one. Come on.
Next report on the agenda is a financial report, Ms. Bolt, for September preliminary financials.
Wendy, do we have a clicker? I don't see it. So this is the preliminary, let me stress preliminary. We're still working on closing out the year and the audit. So I just wanted to give you some numbers to kind of give you an idea of where we stand at this point. So this is for September 2022, the end of fiscal year 2022. Wendy, if you'll go to the next slide, please. So as compared to our annual budget, you can see that we definitely came in over for our revenues, which we were actually not totally expecting. We thought we would have a pretty good year, but ended up being a little bit better. Total expenditures came in just a little under of what we were expecting, and then other sources and uses came in just a little under. So that gave us a net change in fund balance, otherwise what we are adding to our general reserves of $34.2 million. So again, another phenomenal year that we had compared to 2021. One of the things I wanted to let you look at this number because this is going to change. We need to sweep some money over to capital projects funds, as I've told you in the past, for what we're going to spend this year and then cleaning up some things that we spent last year. So we're going to be moving $15 million of that over to the capital projects fund, which will leave us about $19 million roughly, 18 to 19 once we maybe do some edits. Next slide, please. So this is a breakdown of just our revenues. Our total sales tax and use tax came in definitely a little bit over, which is our biggest overage. Other taxes came in, license and permits came in more. The only thing that came in a little bit less was total interest, which we've talked about that many times over, and it's the current market value of our investments. But again, we are definitely doing better than we were doing since we are seeing definitely some increases in those revenues. So that gave us a grand total of $56.7 million. And then to break down just our sales tax, our general sales tax came in a little bit, or $5 million over. I think I'm missing a number there. I apologize for that. So the only thing that came in a little bit under, if you remember, we started the year coming in a little bit under than what we anticipated for casual sales tax, seller's use tax, and consumer use tax. But casual sales tax and seller's use tax have definitely caught up and have increased over the year, but consumer use tax still is falling down. And if you look at, the market trends, you're seeing that continue to fall everywhere. So it's not just us. We are still seeing SSUT continue to grow, so that gave us, our total sales tax came in at $6.4 million than we anticipated. So looking at that, we are looking to add about $19 million to our reserves after we move funds over to the Capital Projects Fund. And I think we need to take some, talk about what we want to do with that, because we've already met our 6-month reserve. We've got our resolution in place to keep that there. And so I think we need to look at some of the things that we have debt on, some of the things that we want to do, and some of in our capital project plan, and kind of make some decisions there, what we want to do with that. Any questions?
Any questions from the members for Ms. Bolt? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our presentations for the night. So we will move on to our consent agenda. The consent agenda is presented at each of our meetings as a list of items that we will take as one block vote. There will be no discussion of these items once we get a motion and a second and the items have been read. However, I would ask if there is a member of the body who would like any item 1 through 7 to be removed to the regular agenda, we'll be happy to do so. Hearing none, I would ask, is there any member of the public here that is here to speak on items 1 through 7? If so, we will be happy to move it from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. Seeing none, Mr. Corley, if you'll read the items on the consent.
Item number 1 approves the minutes from the November 3rd, 2022 work session and the November 7th, 2022 meeting. Item number 2, Resolution 687023, authorizes Mayor Brocato or his designee to execute the annual renewal of the workers' compensation stop-loss insurance policy with Midwest Employers Casualty Company for workers' compensation stop-loss insurance. Resolution 687123 authorizes Mayor Brocato or his designee to execute a special service agreement with AT&T to refresh the existing Entrado Viper 911 phone system hardware to join the City of Birmingham and the City of Homewood core switches. Resolution 687223 approves the revisions to the Personnel Policy and Procedures Manual as shown in Exhibit 1 to the resolution. Resolution 687323 authorizes Mayor Brocato or his designee to execute an agreement with Tyler New World Systems to upgrade the public safety servers to the latest version. Resolution 687423 authorizes preparation of documents and purchase contracts necessary to facilitate the sale of the Series 2023 warrants for the purpose of, without limitation, constructing a new interchange on Interstate 459 in the city, public park improvements within the city, a new performing arts center in the city, and various other public capital improvement projects in the city of Hoover. Resolution 687523 authorizes Mayor Brocato or his designee to sign and submit an application for the 2023 Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity Grants.
Mr. President, I move for approval of the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. We'll now move to our regular agenda, beginning with item number 8, Resolution 686523. Mr. Corley.
This resolution declares a weed and other vegetation nuisance and directs the abatement of such nuisance pursuant to Alabama law at 3416 Cedar Crest Circle.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6865-23.
A motion and a second. This item does call for a public hearing. We'll begin that public hearing now and ask if Mr. Martin would give us an update on the condition of the property.
Yes, sir. We have additional photos taken today, and the property is still in need of abatement.
The members can see photos in front of you on the screen. No change since our work session on Thursday. I would ask, is there any member that has a question about the resolution before us? Hearing none, is there any member of the public here who would like to participate in the public hearing by speaking on behalf of the property under consideration? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We have a motion and second for approval of the resolution. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Item number 9 is resolution number 6863-23. Mr. Corley.
This resolution grants conditional use approval for an automobile washing facility to be located at 3441 Morgan Road with the conditions listed on Exhibit 2 to the resolution.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 686323.
We have a motion for approval. We have a motion for approval. Is there a second? We have a motion for approval with no second. The item dies for lack of a second. We'll move to item number 10, ordinance number 23-2590. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance authorizes the rezoning of 2011 Oak Lane, Hoover, Alabama from Hoover R1 Single Family Residential District to RLSF or Residential Legacy Single Family District.
Mr. President, I move to adopt ordinance number 232590.
We have a motion and a second for adoption of the ordinance. This does require a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing and ask if there's any member of the body who would like to speak on behalf of ordinance 23-2590. Hearing none, is there any member of the public here who would like to speak on behalf of the item? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We have a motion and second for adoption of the ordinance. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Aye. With a vote of 7 ayes, 0 nays, the motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Item number 11, ordinance number 23-2589. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance authorizes the rezoning of 613 Sanders Road and 2421 Savoy Street in Hoover, Alabama from Hoover R1 Single Family Residential District to Hoover PRD Planned Residential Development District with the conditions listed on Exhibit B to the ordinance.
Mr. President, I move to adopt ordinance number 232589.
We have a motion and second for adoption of the ordinance. This too requires a public hearing, so we will open the public hearing and ask, is there any member of the body who would like to speak on this item? Any member of the public here to speak on this item before we take a vote? Yes, ma'am. If you'd come down and give us your name and address. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
My name is Judy Morton. I live at 2329 Hawkesbury Lane. I am southwest from the Hare Farm. I live downhill, and just the nature of the topography in our area, there is a water runoff problem in Bluff Park. It's something we've dealt with for the whole 35 years I've been there, so it's nothing new. My property is not unique. It's common to the whole area. The water runoff pattern, I can only speak to my property. The water runoff pattern, the water comes from down the hill, which Hare Farm sits at the corner of Savoy and Sanders. So coming from that area down the hill through my property, it enters the northeast corner of my yard, runs towards my house, through my crawl space, out my crawl space door, and down to the right-of-way on Hawkesbury, and so on down to the creek and eventually to Patton Creek and all. What I would really like to ask is for consideration that rather than a solid asphalt parking area, that we go with a pervious surface so that there is more opportunity for water to go into the ground as it has always done. Our water runoff will stay the same. My concern is by putting an asphalt parking lot up there at Hare Farm, that we will have more water runoff and will have increased problems in our area. I love what is happening at Hare Farm. I think it's amazing, his intentions and what he wants to do there. It's really a good thing for our community. But that would be my only request, is that more attention. And I do know that in his master plan, he has, mentioned that there could be the possibility of using a pervious material as opposed to asphalt, or a combination. So I would really like to encourage all permeable material.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Thank you.
Is anyone here else who would like Mr. Schultz?
My name is Robin Schultz on Albemarle Drive. Regarding Ms. Morton's comments, that was one of the issues that we were concerned about with the Hare Farm. I spoke with Mr. Hare back in October, and again earlier tonight, and he's going to address that. We're confident that he's going to look at that he is in favor of making sure that what he develops there is going to be very pro-neighborhood. He wants to make it right. Unlike the issue that we had a couple of years ago, this issue is completely different, and we like what he's doing. The one thing that he's definitely talked about is being as environmentally friendly as possible so that we don't have the water runoff, and we did discuss that earlier. So, yeah, it's a good point, something to consider, and he is looking at it, so we're in favor of it. Thank you.
Mr. President, Mac, is anything contained within this ordinance prohibiting a gravel or more pervious parking structure?
According to the zoning ordinance, all required parking areas are to be of an improved surface, but there are a variety of permeable solutions to that. In this particular amendment, or this particular rezoning request, we don't have a condition that the parking lot that is going to be improved be permeable. But we did, in our calculations and working with the applicant, settle upon the number of spaces covered equaling that of the barn facility, which is the largest facility on the site and would be home to the largest number of occupants. One of the conditions in the rezoning request would be that not more than one event take place at a time. So in theory, you have one event on the site, the barn is the largest facility, the largest occupancy, and the parking on the improved surface accounts for that. So we did try to minimize the amount of improved surface on the site.
Any other questions from the members? Any other questions from the audience? Yes, sir, Mr. Hare. He'll defer to you, ma'am. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Sheree Beavers, 641 South Sanders Road. My only problem I have with this is I'm worried about the traffic. It can be coming in from two different directions, which would be South Sanders and Sanders Road. And the traffic on South Sanders is terrible, especially the speeding problem. When I see county school buses going down our street doing 30, 40 miles an hour, that gets a little insane. I've seen people come, I've sat in my front yard and I've seen people come through these stop signs. And one day, this guy, I kid you not, he was doing 45 miles an hour through both stop signs. And this is another concern for me about this venue is I would like to request that we do have some presence of police officers ticketing for speeding, and possibly if we do have these venues, will we have a police officer on site possibly to direct the traffic? But my most concern is the speeding that we're getting up around that area.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Hare. Come on up. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Rice, Marty, a lot of friends in here. And I'd just like to just kind of give a little direction about my vision from the very beginning. A lot of you know me, know what I have tried to accomplish over the years. I've invested a lot into the Bluff Park area. It's very close to me. My children have been raised, my grandchildren have gone to the Bluff Park Elementary Schools, graduated from high school at Berry and the new Hoover High School. I bought a number of properties that was actually in dire need of restoring and have completely restored homes, actually 4 on Savoy and then 1 on Sherilyn. Also own the Bluff Park Ice Cream Shop. My wife asked me when I retired 6 years ago, why are you doing this? You're retired. We're going to travel. But I had a burning in my heart. I had to do something else. I wanted it to be something that the community could enjoy, my family could enjoy, my grandkids could get involved in. So for years, I have driven by. I'm a longtime resident of Hoover, long time. Back when Little Trace Crossings was first Trace Crossings, I was about the 6th or 7th house, I guess, that was built in there. Alan Pate brought me over here, says you need to move over here on this side of town. So those of you that know Alan, I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. So that being said, I wanted to invest back into the community. And I went to the auction there at the Smith Farm auction just to kind of see what it was all about. Always admired the property there. It's the most beautiful piece of property. And lo and behold, I ended up buying it. I go home and my wife says, what have you done? What have you done? I said, trust me, it'll be something nice. Trust me. Well, she did, and she's sitting by my side right now. But it's It's very close to me, and my whole vision is to maintain the character of the property, to maintain the green space. We travel a lot, and it's just, you go to different areas, different cities, different countries, and you see so many green spaces in residential developments. It gives the family places to go that they can walk and things that they can admire and enjoy and do as a family and as a corporation and as a city, that we can all enjoy it. And that's my goal. That's my vision. Those of you that know me, I take a lot of pride in what I do. I want to do things right, and I want the involvement of the neighborhood and the community.
Mr. Hare, thank you very much.
I'm out of time?
You're out of time. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
man, I didn't see a clock. Oh, there it is.
Yes, sir.
John, I just can keep, I'll go on.
Thank you very much for your participation. Okay, we'll give you another bite maybe another time. Any other member of the public like to speak tonight? Yes, sir. Oh, Mr. Hare, would you give us your name and address, please?
David Hare, 5128 Trace Crossings Drive.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, you got that? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, please. Name and address, and you too are recognized for 3 minutes, sir.
Zach Kesterson, 500.
Just give us a second if you don't mind in the microphone. We'll get you started so we can hear you. There you go.
Hello. Zach Kesterson. I live at 500 Brentwood Drive, and I got a yellow notice about this hearing. And I know him, and I know his plan, and I fully support it. So.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Any other member of the public like to speak tonight? Very good. We've heard from the body and members of the public. We will now close the public hearing. We have a motion and second for adoption of the ordinance. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Aye. With a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays, the motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. We'll now move to item number 12, Resolution 6864-23. Mr. Corley.
This resolution grants conditional use approval for the property located at 613 Sanders Road and 2421 Savoy Street for utilization of the property as a venue for public and private events with the conditions listed in Exhibit 2 to the resolution.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6864-23.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for approval of the resolution. This does require a public hearing, so we will open the public hearing and ask, is there any member of the body who would like to speak on behalf of the resolution tonight? Any member of the public who would like to speak? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. We have a motion and a second for approval of the resolution. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. We will now have 2 different first readings tonight. These first readings will be first readings only. There will not be public hearings tonight, but public hearings will be set forth for February 6th, where these items will be on the agenda again for a second reading and a potential vote, beginning with item number 13, ordinance number 23-2591. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance modifies Chapter 10 Municipal Court, Section 3, where and when held of the Municipal Code of the City of Hoover, Alabama.
And item number 14, ordinance number 23-2592, Mr. Corley.
This ordinance establishes short-term rental regulations for the City of Hoover, Alabama. Public hearing set for February 6, 2023.
Very good. We're going to back up to item number 13 and ask Mr. Martin if he wouldn't mind to come and present item number 14, and tell us a little bit about this ordinance, please.
Sure thing. You can even put the 3-minute clock on it if you'd like. City staff was tasked with developing an ordinance that not only defines short-term rentals and what they are, but also seeks to regulate them. And the genesis of this was a number of calls and inquiries coming into various city departments regarding the ability to operate short-term rentals within the city, but B, some calls from concerned citizens concerned about them locating within their neighborhoods. I don't have a fully quantified number of these calls, but It was quite a volume coming across multiple departments. So some of the concerns expressed to us from residents included increased traffic, noise, overcrowding of the neighborhood homes, high turnover of the occupancy at the homes, and not knowing who was coming in and who was going out. The impacts, according to numerous folks that got in contact with us, were adversely affecting the character and enjoyment of these residential areas. So we attempted to draft regulations that help safeguard the health, safety, and general welfare of the occupants of these residential neighborhoods. This draft ordinance was compiled by our legal team and city clerk with assistance from a number of departments. So first and foremost, the ordinance defines what a short-term rental is, and essentially it is the use of a property for rent to transient occupants for less than 30 days. And the definition specifically does not include hotels, motels, and the like. The draft ordinance requires a number of things. First off, it requires smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, posted emergency contact information, floor plans, exits. Also, at current time, this draft requires sprinkler fire suppression systems in the buildings that play host to short-term rentals. Also, the properties must meet the maintenance code. Notice must be given to neighbors of the intent to operate a short-term rental on the site, and the operator is required to have insurance. The ordinance requires or provides for the permitting of short-term rentals within any zoning district for one time only during a calendar year for special events. Said annual special event short-term rental can be leased for a maximum of 7 consecutive days, and this one-time short-term rental does require a permit. Outside of the special events option, short-term rentals are permitted in the R4 multifamily district, the C-P, C1, C2, C3 commercial districts, the SPU special use district, the PR2 multifamily planned residential, the PO planned office, and the PC planned commercial districts. They are not permitted outside of these districts on a regular basis. The ordinance establishes an annual permitting process with the planning department and licensing with the revenue department. It also establishes a permitting process for the one time only per calendar year option as well through the planning department. This particular ordinance sets maximum occupancy to 2 persons per bedroom or as determined by the fire marshal. It requires the site to have enough space for 1 parking space per bedroom, with all parking being off-street. This provides for penalties and suspensions should the provisions of the ordinance be violated. Provisions of this ordinance, I will note, and this is important, they do not negate any restrictive covenants that may be in effect for neighborhoods that prohibit short-term rentals. So that's a brief synopsis of what this current ordinance, this draft includes. And I'll try to answer any questions that you may have tonight or in the coming weeks, as well as legal team.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Does any member have a question tonight for Mr. Martin? Yes, sir.
Mr. Martin, with the special event thingy we have right here, are they required to have sprinkler systems?
What I'm reading out of the ordinance is yes, they would.
Okay,
That's
so
current form.
if you're someone like in Greystone or Trace Crossings, SEC baseball tournament, or you want to rent out your facility or home to a golfer, you still have to have a sprinkler system okayed by the fire marshal, correct?
At least my interpretation of this draft is yes.
What is R4 exactly?
R4 is our base multifamily residential district.
So basically apartment complexes can have short-term rentals, Airbnbs, but not residential homes, correct?
That's correct.
anything that a HOA would do supersedes what the council would do, correct?
This particular ordinance would not negate any restrictive covenants within neighborhoods.
Do you have an idea? I know I'm just spitballing right here. How many residential homes do we have actually, do you think, in Hoover?
Oh, it would be somewhere in the 25 to 30,000 range.
Okay. Do you know how many of those have HOAs?
I do not.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions tonight? We've got 2 weeks to, well, we've got 2 weeks. As I said at work session, this item has been before this body for 4 years. And it's one we've been working on, and former Mayor Skinner recently shared a story with me about how the first, and if you haven't heard it, I encourage you to have a cup of coffee with him and understand how the first zoning ordinance was passed, Mayor. You may recall this one. It was one page. It was 1 page long, and there's a house on Deodara that precipitated the need to have a zoning ordinance. It was 1 page. Today, does anyone want to take a guess at how long our zoning ordinance is? 168 pages. So over the 53 years that the city's been in existence, business changes, residential needs change, as does our zoning ordinance. So what this ordinance is doing is taking a new business model, and just as we do every single business that operates within the city of Hoover, it's allowing the body to determine where does it best operate within the city. We do it for food trucks, we do it for dry cleaners, we do it for car washes, grocery stores, you name it. Every single business has a certain type of zoning they have to operate under, and these type of short-term rentals are no different. And that's what this ordinance is doing. I want to thank the members who have engaged in this process over the last several months. We've had some very good feedback, and I think we have an ordinance that deserves their attention. We have a first reading tonight. We'll come back together on the 6th for a second. Thank you, Mr. Martin. That brings us to the end of our